Hello and welcome to the Prelims PYQ analysis series of Drishti IAS English. I am Aisha, and in this episode we will be covering the part 2 of Economy PYQ analysis. So if you haven't watched the part 1, then go on to the playlist section of the Drishti IAS English and watch part 1 also. So before starting, let me tell you that the PDF of this program will be provided on the Telegram, and the link for the Telegram is provided in the description box. And there is also a comment pinned for you in the comment section, so you can also go and attempt that question. So let us begin. So the first question is, consider the following market. Then there is government bond market, call money market, treasury bill market and stock market. How many of the above are included in the capital markets? Only one, only two, only three, or all four? So how many are included in the capital market? So the correct answer is option B, that is only 2. So let us first see it. Now first of all, what is a capital market? So capital market is basically for long term buying and selling of commodities for a long term. Now which of the following are for long term? That is government bond market, call money market, treasury bill market or stock market. Now coming on to the government bond market, yes, government bond market is for a longer period of time. So they are long-term debt securities which are issued by the government to finance their activities, and is also a part of the capital market as it involves the trading of the long-term debt securities. So long-term debt securities trading means government bonds are correct. Then comes the second, that is call money market. Now call money market is do not come in capital market. It is an example of the money market, as it is for short term, and basically you can say it is for overnight lending of loans from one bank to another bank. So this becomes wrong. Third is the treasury bill market. Treasury bill market is also for short term. They are debt instrument by the government, and this is basically for a short term, that is less than 1 year. Then comes to the stock market. Now stock market is an example of the capital market. Call money market and treasury bill market are example of the money market. Now stock market is for long term, in which the selling and buying of the stocks can take place. So it is also an example of the capital market. So first and fourth are correct. Therefore the correct answer is option B, that is only 2. Now next question. Next question talks about, with reference to convertible bonds, consider the following statement, and there are 2 statements given. First statement talks about, as there is an option to exchange the bond for equity, convertible bonds pay a lower rate of interest. Second is, the option to convert to equity affords the bondholder a degree of indexation to rising consumer prices. Which of the statements given above are correct? 1 only, 2 only, both 1 and 2, neither 1 nor 2. The correct answer is option C, that is both 1 and 2. It means first and second both are correct. Now let us look at the explanation. So first of all, what is a convertible bond? So it is a fixed income corporate debt security. Fixed income corporate debt security that yields interest payment. So on that bond, interest can also be taken, but can be converted into a predetermined number of common stock or equity shares. So conversion can be done. Therefore, companies that issue convertible bonds to lower the coupon rate, that is lower interest rate on debt, and to delay dilution. Therefore, statement 1 becomes correct. And then there may be more attractive to investors, since convertible bonds provide growth potential. So there is growth potential with regard to future capital appreciation. So if in future the capital appreciation will take place, then also the growth potential is there within the convertible bonds. So investors will be benefited due to rising consumer prices. So if the consumer prices will rise, then the future capital appreciation clause of it will provide the growth potential for the consumer also, or for the investors also. Therefore statement 2 becomes correct. Therefore the correct answer becomes option C, that is both 1 and 2. Before moving to the next question, Drishti IAS has come up with the IAS Prelims 2025 General Science course. This is in English medium, and the features are 400 plus hours of classes, unlimited view time, prelims, test series. So if you have any query, give us a call at 87501 and you can also download the Drishti Learning app. Now next question. With reference to the Indian economy, consider the following statements. There are two statements given. First, a share of the household financial savings goes towards government borrowing. Household financial savings, what you and your parents are saving at home, then it goes towards government borrowings. Government is borrowing. Then dated securities issued at marked related rates in auctions from a large component of internal debt. Which of the above statements are correct? One only, two only, both one and two, neither one nor two. So the correct answer for this is option C, that is both 1 and 2. So let us look at the explanation. Now if we will talk about the gross financial savings of households, so that gross financial savings of household, this basically includes the money which is saved in banks, provident fund, pension schemes, mutual funds, shares, insurance and in other categories. Then the deposits with banks are the single largest form of household financial assets, because majority of the people go and deposit their money into the banks. Then this is followed by insurance fund, mutual fund and currency. Therefore, any kind of adverse movement in the household saving will have an effect on the bank and the business of the bank. Then be it bank, insurance company or mutual fund, provident fund. Therefore, the key investors, they are also the key investors in the government securities. Therefore, statement 1 becomes correct. That is, a share of the household financial saving goes towards government borrowings, because the money which the people are saving, they basically go into the bank. Then internal debt constitutes over 90% of the overall public debt. So whatever is the overall public debt, around 90% of it is the internal debt. So internal loans that make up for the bulk of the public debt are further divided into two broad categories. So they are marketable and non-marketable debts. So divided into two categories. Then the source of public debt are dated government securities. So government securities are also one of the sources of the public debt, and apart from the government securities, they are treasury bills, external assistance, short-term borrowings. Therefore, statement 2 also becomes correct, that is dated securities, correct, issued at market related rates in auctions form a large component of internal debt, and we just see that be it dated securities or be it dated securities, treasury bills, external assistance or short-term borrowings, they are all part of internal debt. Therefore, both the options becomes correct, and the correct answer is option C, that is both 1 and 2. Now next question, consider the following. So that is foreign currency convertible bonds, foreign institutional investment with certain conditions, that is FII, then global depository receipts, and then non-resident external deposits. Which of the above can be included in the FDI? So out of these four, which can be included within the FDI, that is the foreign direct investment? 1, 2 and 3, 3 only, 2 and 4 only, or 1 and 4? So the correct answer of this is option A, that is 1, 2 and 3. It means foreign currency convertible bonds, foreign institutional investment with certain conditions, and global depository receipts. Non-resident external deposits is not correct. It does not come under FDI. Let us see it. So if we talk about the FDI, that is foreign direct investment, it means that the money which is coming from outside of the country and then for a long period of time, and basically you can say that it builds from it helps in building the business from the scratch, and if within a company it comes, then it takes some proper and a large share of the holding of that company. So the foreign investment means that any investment made by a person resident outside India on a repatriable basis. Repatriable basis means that money can be taken back in capital instruments of an Indian company or to the capital of a company. So that is foreign investment. Now coming on to the options. Foreign investment is basically, as I told you, money coming from outside and having a substantial say, and that can be taken back also. Now coming back to the options, first is foreign currency convertible bonds. Foreign currency convertible bonds. So invested in Indian companies, since these bonds are convertible into equity shares over a period of time as provided in the instrument. So if that can be converted into equity shares, that can be converted into FDI also. Second is the foreign institutional investors. So foreign institutional investor basically and in general term is not FDI, as they can invest up to a maximum of 10% of the total paid up capital. Maximum of total paid up capital is up to 10%, but if the number goes beyond 10%, then it can be turned into FDI, because after going beyond 10%, it becomes a basic say in the management of that company also. So in certain criteria and after having certain conditions, FII can be converted into FDI. Then next is the global depository receipts. So the Indian companies can raise for foreign currency resources abroad through the issue of the American depository receipts or the global depository receipts in accordance with the scheme for issue of the foreign currency convertible bonds. So if the Indian company is raising money from outside, so that can also be converted into the FDI, as the issue of foreign currency convertible bonds can also take place. But if we come to the non-resident, that is non-resident external deposits. So non-resident external deposits cannot be turned into FDI, as non-resident external deposits are not treated as FDI, as banks can route these deposits for loans. So banks can basically use the deposit of the NRI for loans, and NRIs can invest in shares on recognized stock exchange under the portfolio investment route. So FDI it cannot be turned into. So first 1, 2 and 3 are correct, 4 is wrong, therefore the correct answer is option A, that is 1, 2 and 3. Next question. Indian government bond yields are influenced by which of the following? Bond yields. First is actions of the United States Federal Reserve. Second is the actions of the Reserve Bank of India. Third is the inflation and the short-term interest rates. Select the correct answer using the code given below. 1 and 2 only, 2 only, 3 only, or 1, 2 and 3. So basically here the topic is basically about the bond. So bond is a debt instrument used by the government or the people. So and the interest which comes on the bond by the selling of the bond or by the selling and buying of the bond is basically what is called a bond yield. So it is a debt instrument. A few of the example of the bond can be government bonds, treasury bills. Then it is issued by the government. Then the selling of it can be done in the primary or the secondary market. Then the interest which is earned on the bond becomes the bond yield. So bond yield is the return an investor realizes on a bond. So overall detail we will not be going into, but the basic funda that you need to remember, even if you do not understand the whole concept, is that bond price is inversely proportional to bond yield. If the price will go up, then the yield will come down. If the yield will go up, then the price will come down. So basically there is an inverse relationship between the bond price and the bond yield. Now coming on to the aspect that which all affects the bond and the price of the bond or the bond yield. So if the Fed of the United States, then the Fed tapering is the gradual reduction in the bond buying program of the US Federal Reserve. So if the US Federal Reserve will change its interest rate or the bond yield program, or basically will increase or decrease the percentage or the interest given on the yield, then what can happen is then the effect on the yield will also take place, because if the price of the bond will increase, then the yield will decrease, or if the yield will increase, then the price will decrease. So if in the US interest rate is changed, then even in the Indian market it will affect the bonds. Then the action of the RBI plays a crucial role in determining the yield of government bonds, because the sovereign yield curve has a special significance for monetary policy in influencing a wide array of interest rates in the economy. Now what happens is that actions of the US Federal Reserve and actions of the Reserve Bank of India. Now, Reserve Bank is the central bank of India, and if the Reserve Bank will increase or decrease the interest rate in the country, then that will have a direct bearing on the bond yields of a bond. Then this also becomes correct. Then inflation and short-term interest rates will also have a impact. They will also influence the yield of the government bonds, because if the inflation will increase, then the RBI will take steps in the form of the monetary policy change, or the expansionary monetary policy, or the contractionary monetary policy. So if the monetary policy will be changed, then directly or indirectly it will affect the bond yield. So the correct answer for this becomes option D, that is 1, 2 and 3. It means all three are correct. Next, in the context of the Indian economy, non-financial debt includes which of the following? Non-financial debt includes which of the following? Housing loans owned by households, amounts outstanding on credit cards, or treasury bills. Select the correct answer using the code given below. 1 only, 1 and 2 only, 3 only, or 1, 2 and 3. So, non-financial debt includes which of the following? The correct answer for this is option D, that is 1, 2 and 3. It means all 3. Let us see. So, debts, if we talk about debt, they are contractual obligations to repay monetary loans, often with the related interest expense. If it means that you need to pay the loan back, and then there will be an interest on that loan also that you need to pay back. Now, coming to the non-financial debt, then it consists of credit instruments issued by governmental entities, households and businesses that are not included in the financial sector. So things which are not included in the financial sector, non-financial debt includes it also. Like for example, credit instrument which are issued basically by the governmental entities, households and the businesses. Then it includes industrial or commercial loans, treasury bills, credit card balances, because see, if credit card you have taken and used it, then you need to pay it, and if you will not pay the bill on time, then there will be an extra interest that you need to pay as penalty. Then treasury bills, if you are buying, then you need to pay, or then you need to pay that amount. And also the commercial loans, they share most of the same characteristics with financial debt, except the issues are non-financial. Therefore, first 1, 2 and 3 are correct. So non-financial debt includes which of the following? Housing loans owned by households, amounts outstanding on credit cards and treasury bills. Therefore, all three are correct. Option D is the correct option. Next, which of the following is issued by registered foreign portfolio investors to overseas investors who want to be part of the Indian stock market without registering themselves directly? See, issued by the registered foreign portfolio investors to overseas investors. Overseas investors means the people who are outside the country and they want to invest in the country, and they want to be the part of the Indian stock market, but they do not want to register themselves with the Indian stock market. Certificate of deposit, commercial paper, promissory note or participatory note. So the correct answer is option D, that is participatory note, popularly known as the P note. Many a times in inside the examination hall, people get confused because the option C and option D is almost on the same lines, that is promissory note and participatory note. So if you are marking it in a hurry, then you might, even after knowing the answer, you might be able to mark the answer C. Now coming to the answer D, that is a participatory note or P note is an instrument which is issued by the registered foreign institutional investor to an overseas investor who wishes to invest in Indian stock market without registering themselves with the market regulator, that is SEBI. Now, for example, this is SEBI, this is Indian stock market, this is overseas market, and few of the people of the overseas market want to invest in the Indian overseas market, but they do not want to register themselves with the SEBI. So they will buy a P note, and on the name of the P note, they will invest money into the Indian stock market without registering themselves with the SEBI. So this also is one of the aspects of, you can say, the hot money. Also one of the aspect why the volatility in the Indian stock market comes. Next, with reference to the Indian economy, what are the advantages of inflation indexed bonds? Inflation indexed bonds, there are three statements given. Government can reduce the coupon rates on its borrowing by way of IIBs. Second, IIBs provide protection to the investors from uncertainty regarding inflation. Third, the interest received as well as capital gains on IIBs are not taxable. So whatever the capital gains on the IIBs are done, they are not taxed. It provides protection from uncertainty, and government can reduce the coupon rate on its borrowing. Which of the statements given above are correct? 1 and 2 only, 2 and 3 only, 1 and 3 only, or 1, 2 and 3? The correct answer is option A, that is 1 and 2 only. So first and second are correct, while third is incorrect. Let us see this. So if we talk about the inflation indexed bonds, they were issued during the 1997 in the name of the capital indexed bonds. They provided inflation protection only for principal and not for interest payments. So it means that if something is for 100 rupees and with interest it becomes 110 rupees, then on the 100 rupees the protection will be provided, while the 10 rupees which is as interest, the protection will not be provided. However, new products of IIB provide inflation protection for both principal and interest payments. So the new products which are issued under the IIBs, they provide protection against both principal and the index. Therefore, statement 1 becomes correct, that is government can reduce the coupon rate. No, this will be IIBs provide protection to the investors from uncertainty regarding inflation. So second becomes correct. Then the interest rate is protected from inflation by paying a fixed coupon rate on the principal adjusted against inflation. So if a fixed coupon rate is given, then the protection is provided against inflation also, and the government can reduce the coupon rate on its borrowing in the form of IIBs. So government can reduce the coupon rate on its borrowing by way of IIBs. This also becomes correct first. Next is that IIBs can also be traded in the secondary market. Then if they are sold in the secondary market and profit is made, then capital gain tax has to be paid. Because if in the stock market something is done, then the capital gain tax needs to be paid. So the interest received as well as capital gains on the IIBs are non-taxable becomes wrong. Therefore, first and second are correct. Therefore, the correct answer is option A, that is 1 and 2 only. Next. Before moving forward, Drishti IAS has come up with the IAS GS Foundation course, the live online IAS GS Foundation course. So if the few of the features are 1000 plus hours of classes, unlimited view time, prelims test series. This is in English medium. So if you want to go with this course, then give us a call at 87501 and you can also download the Drishti Learning app. Now moving forward, in India, which one of the following is responsible for maintaining price stability by controlling inflation? Price stability by controlling inflation. Department of Consumer Affairs, Expenditure Management Commission, Financial Stability and Development Council, or the Reserve Bank of India? The correct answer is option D, that is Reserve Bank of India. So the primary objective of the monetary policy is to maintain the price stability while in keeping the objective of growth in mind. Price stability is a necessary precondition for sustainable growth. Now, monetary policy of a country is decided by the RBI's MPC, that is Monetary Policy Committee, and recently we have seen that the repo rate has been reduced from 6.5 to 6.25, that is 25 basis point or 0.25%. So one of the primary objectives of the MPC is keeping inflation in check with regard to the growth in mind. Now the Reserve Bank of India is vested with the responsibility of conducting the monetary policy, and this responsibility is explicitly mandated under the Reserve Bank of India Act 1934. Then in 2016, the Reserve Bank of India Act 1934 was amended to provide a statutory basis for the implementation of the flexible inflation targeting framework. So the correct answer becomes option D, that is the Reserve Bank of India. Next, that is with reference to Indian economy, demand pull inflation can be caused or increased by which of the following? Can be caused or increased. Demand pull inflation. Expansionary policies, fiscal stimulus, inflation indexing of wages, higher purchasing power, rising interest rates. Then select the correct answer using the code given below. 1, 2 and 4 only, 3, 4 and 5 only, 1, 2, 3 and 5 only, or 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. So let us see. The correct answer is option A. That is 1, 2 and 4 only. 1, 2 and 4. It means third and fifth are wrong. Demand pull inflation. So first of all, what is a demand pull inflation? As the word itself is saying that the demand and pull inflation. So the demand is pulling the inflation. So the demand pull inflation represents a situation where the basic factor at work is the increase in aggregate demand for output either from the households or entrepreneurs or the government. Now what happens is, imagine there is a commodity in a market, like imagine there is a toothpaste. Now the demand for the toothpaste is going up while the supply of the toothpaste is going down and the demand is going up. Now what will happen? The price of the toothpaste will increase, and this price of the toothpaste is increasing because of the increasing demand in the market. So that will be one of the examples of the demand pull inflation. Now coming to the expansionary policies. Expansionary policies leads to an expansion of the money supply with too few goods to buy, which leads to increase in the price. Now too few goods to buy, it means that the demand is increasing. So first is correct. Higher purchasing power. If in an economy employment rises, more people go to the work, they will make more money and then they will spend more money, because if people will have money in their pockets, then they will be able to spend that money. However, if at a point of time people are willing to spend more money while goods are limited in the market, then competition among the consumer drives the prices up. Now see, this is the same concept in the case of toothpaste. Now imagine if the supply of toothpaste is more but the demand is very low. So this is the same concept which is given here, that the competition among the consumer drives the prices up. That the competition, the people within them will have a lot of competition that they want to buy a particular product. So that will also raise the price high. Then comes the fiscal stimulus. So that is the policy tools often used to implement fiscal stimulus include lowering interest rates, increasing government spending and quantitative easing. Often these fiscal stimulus lead to the increase of money supply in the economy. Therefore 2 also becomes correct, because fiscal stimulus, it means that the tools which are providing the fiscal stimulus, that is they are lowering the interest rate or increasing government spending. So if the government is also spending more, then also the prices will go up. Then inflation indexing ensures lowest paid workers a wage that keeps pace with the rising cost of goods and services. So if the person will only have the money to spend for their basic needs, then the rise in the prices will not take place. Therefore 3 becomes incorrect. And if there is an inverse relationship between the interest rate and the rate of inflation, so when interest rates are high, the economy slows and inflation decreases. So interest rates goes up, then people will not take much loan, and then what will happen? The inflation will decrease. Therefore 5th is also not correct. So the correct answer becomes option A, that is first, second and fourth. Inflation indexing of wages and rising interest rate becomes incorrect. Next, which one of the following is likely to be the most inflationary in its effect? Most inflationary in its effect. Repayment of public debt, borrowing from the public to finance a budget deficit, borrowing from the banks to finance a budget deficit, then creation of new money to finance a budget deficit. Which of the following is likely to be the most inflationary? It means the inflation will come by adopting any one of it. So the correct answer for this is option D, that is creation of new money to finance a budget deficit. Because if new money will come, it means that the already present money in the market, apart from that, extra money is also added into the economy. So that will lead to inflation. Now deficit financing, that is a practice in which a government spends more money than it receives as revenue. It means the expenditure is more while the revenue is less. So this causes inflation, and this can be done in the following ways. Imagine the government is earning 100 rupees, but it is spending 150 rupees. It means that 50 rupees is extra. Now from where the government is going to get that 50 rupees? So it can be done in the following ways. Now creation of new money, it means printing new currency. Then borrowing from internal sources like for example RBI, general public, ad hoc treasury bills and government bonds. Borrowing from external sources like borrowing from the developed countries or the international institutions like the IMF or the World Bank. So basically what happens with the creation of new money, that is printing new currency. Now imagine if there is 100 rupees overall currency in the market which is already present, and you print 100 more. So basically in the economy what will happen? 200 currency will work. So that will cause inflation. Therefore the correct answer becomes option D. Next. In a given year in India, official poverty lines are higher in some states than in other states because poverty rates vary from state to state, price levels vary from state to state, gross state product varies from state to state, or quality of public distribution varies from state to state. So the correct answer is option B, that is price levels vary from state to state. Now what happens in this? In India, poverty is estimated at absolute level or the minimum money required for subsistence. Now what happens in the poverty case is that the person will or is earning a particular amount, and that particular amount in itself is not sufficient that the person can take care of his own needs or his family needs. Then presently the poverty line is defined as the minimum money required for maintaining a per capita caloric intake. It means that it is maintained on the basis of the calorie intake. So that is 2100 calories in urban areas while 2400 calories in a rural area. Then according to the poverty estimates of the Planning Commission, the poverty lines vary from state to state because the price of per capita goods varies due to interstate price differentials. In one state the prices are different while in other states the prices are different. If you are able to buy something at a particular price in Uttar Pradesh, then you might not be able to buy that particular good in Maharashtra at the same price because the price varies in both the states. Therefore the correct answer is option B, that is price levels vary from state to state. Next, consider the following statements. There are 3 statements given. First, the government of India provides minimum support price for Niger seeds. Second, Niger is cultivated as a kharif crop. Third, some tribal people in India use Niger seed oil for cooking. How many of the above statements are correct? Only one, only two, all three, or none? So the correct answer for this is option C, that is all three. It means 1, 2, 3, all three are correct. Next, so the government provides minimum support price for Niger seeds. That is true. Now it is a fact. There is no explanation for it. It is a fact. You need to remember it. And if we talk about the minimum support price, as the word itself is saying, that the minimum support price needs to be given. Below it, the prices cannot be given to buy a particular commodity from the market, or that particular price is provided by the government to the farmers. Minimum support price, minimum, it means above that only price needs to be given. Below that particular price, the price will not be given to the farmers by the government. Now kharif season extends from June to October, during which crops are sown and harvested, and Niger is primarily cultivated as a kharif crop in India, that is between June to October. So second also becomes correct. And the tribal population uses Niger seed oil for cooking. The press cake post oil extraction as livestock feed and consume the seeds as a condiment. Therefore third also becomes correct. Therefore all three are correct. So the correct answer is option C, that is all three. Next, consider the following statements. There are 2 statements given. First, in the case of all cereals, pulses and oilseeds, the procurement at minimum support price is unlimited in any state or UT of India is unlimited on all pulses, cereals and oilseeds. Second, in the case of cereals and pulses, the MSP is fixed in any state UT at a level to which the market price will never rise. Which of the statements given above is or are correct? 1 only, 2 only, both 1 and 2, neither 1 nor 2. So let us see this. The correct answer is option D. That is neither 1 nor 2. It means both are incorrect. So if we talk about the government of India, it announces MSP. As I just told you, it is the minimum support price, that this much price needs to be provided by the government to the farmers. And Government of India announces minimum support price for 22 major agricultural commodities each year in both the crop seasons. That is after taking into account the recommendations of the CACP. So the MSP recommendation is given by the CACP, that is the Commission for Agricultural Cost and Prices. Then CACP recommends MSP for 22 crops and fair and remunerative prices for sugarcane. So for sugarcane, fair and remunerative prices, and for 22 crops, MSP. Then the overall procurement quantity should not normally exceed 25% of the actual production of the commodity for that particular year, over and above the procurement limit of 25%, if any prior approval of the Department of Agriculture shall be required. Therefore, first is incorrect. In the case of all cereals, pulses and oilseeds, the procurement of MSP is unlimited in any state of India. So it is not unlimited, 25%. Second, while the proposals based on input cost vary from state to state, the MSP is fixed to avoid price inequality. When the market prices dip to a level that is below the MSP, the government agencies buy over the produce in order to protect the farmers. Thus, market price can rise above MSP. So, in the case of cereals and pulses, the MSP is fixed in any state UT at a level to which the market price will never rise. So, this becomes wrong because the market price can rise. Therefore, both are incorrect. Option D is the correct answer. Now, moving on to the next question. Before the next question, Drishti IAS has come up with the IAS prelims test series for the upcoming 2025 prelims. So this is the right opportunity for you to go for your prelims preparation and check that how exam ready you are. Comprehensive coverage will be done, subject wise evaluation, detailed explanation. This is in English medium. For any query, give us a call at 87501 and you can also download the Drishti Learning app. Now let's move forward. Which of the following factors or policies were affecting the price of rice in India in the recent past? So price of rice. Minimum support price, government trading, government stockpiling or consumer subsidies. Select the correct answer using the codes given below: 1, 2 and 4, 1, 3 and 4, 2 and 3, 1, 2, 3 and 4. The correct answer is option D, that is 1, 2, 3 and 4. It means all 4 are affecting the price of rice in India. So if we talk about MSP, that is the minimum support price. So minimum support price is a floor price which is decided by the government, at which it procures crops from farmers, and the aim is basically to protect the farmers against the decline in the agricultural prices during the good harvest seasons. Then MSP also distorts the market because the government procurement agencies buys 70 to 80% rice by forcing out private players. So if the government is buying majority of the quantity of the rice, then the government players are not able to buy rice from the government. Therefore, statement 1 becomes correct. Minimum support price. Then government in India typically buys more than a third of the country's rice output at a fixed price, which has a direct impact on the price of rice. So at fixed price the government is buying. Then in India the government stockpiles cereals like the wheat and rice for distribution to poor through the public distribution system. So that also affects the price of rice, because if the government will buy everything, then the private players are not able to buy. A subsidy means the government pays part of the cost. It can be provided both to the producer as well as the consumer. So now imagine that something is for 100 rupees and as subsidy the government is paying 50 rupees. So the person only has to pay rupees 50 to buy the item of 100 rupees. So how many are affecting the price of rice? So the minimum support price, yes. Government trading, yes. Government stockpiling, yes. Consumer subsidies, yes. All four are correct. Next, consider the following statements. There are three statements given. First, coal sector was nationalized by the government of India under the Prime Minister Indira Gandhi. Then now coal blocks are allocated on lottery basis. Till recently, India imported coal to meet the shortages of domestic supply, but now India is self-sufficient in coal production. See, this is a question of the year 2019. This is not a present question, as we are doing PYQ. So the explanation of this question is also on the basis of that year. Which of the statements given above are correct? 1 only, 2 and 3 only, 3 only, 1, 2 and 3. The correct answer is option A, that is 1 only. It means first is correct, second and third is wrong. The coal sector was nationalized in two phases under the Indira Gandhi government in the year 1972. So this becomes correct. The coal blocks are allocated through auctions and not on lottery basis. So lottery basis is not there, auctions. Then the coal sector is the monopolistic sector in India. Monopolistic sector means that there are only very few people who are working in this sector and they have a monopoly in this sector. Then India holds fifth biggest coal reserves in the world, but due to the incapacity of coal production by monopolistic firms, it imports coal to meet the shortages of the domestic supply. Therefore, third is also not correct. The coal sector was nationalized by the government of India under Indira Gandhi, correct. Coal blocks are allocated on lottery basis, auction basis, wrong. Till recently, India imported coal to meet the shortages of domestic supply, but now India is self-sufficient in coal production, no. So second and third is wrong, first is correct. Correct answer becomes option A. Next, consider the following statements. There are three statements given. First, Petroleum and Natural Gas Regulatory Board is the first regulatory board which was set up by the government of India. Second is, one of the tasks of PNGRB is to ensure competitive markets for gas. Third is, appeals against the decisions of PNGRB go before the appellate tribunals for electricity. So which of the statements given above are correct? 1 and 2 only, 2 and 3 only, 1 and 3 only, 1, 2 and 3. The correct answer is option B, that is 2 and 3. So 2 is correct, 3 is correct, first is wrong. Let us see this. So the Petroleum and Natural Gas Regulatory Board was constituted under the Petroleum and Natural Gas Regulatory Board Act of the year 2006. The independent regulator, that is TRAI, that is the Telecom Regulatory Authority of India, set up under TRAI Act of 1997, was the first independent regulator in India. So the PNGRB was set up under TRAI, and the PNGRB is tasked to protect the interest of consumers and entities which are engaged in specified activities relating to petroleum products and natural gas, and also to promote competitive prices and for matters connected with thereto. So Petroleum and Natural Gas Regulatory Board is the first regulatory body set up under the government of India. No, it was TRAI. Then comes one of the tasks of PNGRB is to ensure competitive market for gas. So that is correct, competitive markets for gas. So 2 is correct. Third, the appellate tribunal established under section 110 of the Electricity Act 2003 shall be the appellate tribunal to appeal against the decisions of the PNGRB. So appeals against the decisions of the PNGRB to go before the appellate tribunals for electricity. So this also becomes correct. So second and third is correct. So option B becomes correct, first is wrong. Next, the economic cost of food grains to the Food Corporation of India is minimum support price and bonus paid to the farmers plus economic cost of food grains to the FCI is MSP paid to the farmers plus what it is. So transportation cost only, interest cost only, procurement incidentials and distribution cost, and procurement incidentials and charges for go downs. So the correct answer is option C, that is procurement incidentials and distribution cost. So let us see this. So the central government extends price support for paddy, coarse grains and wheat through the Food Corporation of India and state agencies. So basically the central government is extending the price support, paddy, coarse grains and wheat through the FCI. Then several state governments are involved in the procurement operations of the food grains, like for example the rice and the wheat, either through their departments or through their agencies on behalf of the FCI for delivery to the central pool or for their own requirements. So own requirement is also there. Then the economic cost of food grain consists of three components, and it is mainly the MSP, that is the minimum support price. Then it includes central bonus if applicable as the price paid to farmers, procurement incidentals and the cost of distribution. Cost of distribution, procurement incidentals, then price paid to farmers. So these are the three things. So the correct answer becomes option C, that is procurement incidentals and the distribution cost. Next, which one of the following situations best reflects indirect transfers often talked about in media recently with reference to India? Indirect transfers. So listen to the options, and they are lengthy options. An Indian company investing in a foreign enterprise and paying taxes to the foreign country on the profits arising out of its investments. Second, a foreign company investing in Indian and paying taxes to the country of its base on the profits arising out of its investments. Third, an Indian company purchases tangible assets in a foreign country and sells such assets after their value increases and transfers the proceeds to India. Fourth, a foreign company transfers shares and such shares drive their substantial value from asset located in India. So these are the four options, and the correct answer is option D. With reference to trade related investment measures, that is TRIMS, which of the following statements is or are correct? So there are three statements. First, quantitative restrictions on imports by foreign investors are prohibited. Second, they apply to investment measures related to trade in both goods and services. Third, they are not concerned with the regulation of foreign investment. Select the correct answer using the code given below. 1 and 2 only, 2 only, 1 and 3 only, 1, 2 and 3 only. The correct answer is option C, that is 1 and 3 only. It means 1 and 3 are correct, second is wrong. So let us see this. TRIMS. So TRIMS agreement, if we talk about, so it is basically negotiated during the Uruguay round of 1986 to 1944 under the World Trade Organizations. So the WTO members have agreed not to apply certain investment measures that discriminate against foreign goods, that restrict or distort trade or leads to quantitative restrictions, both of which violate the WTO principles. Therefore, statement 1 is correct. That is, quantitative restrictions on imports by foreign investors are prohibited. So that becomes correct. Second is, this agreement applies only to measures that affect trade in goods. That affect trade in goods. They apply to investment measures related to trade in both goods and services. No, services is not there, only in goods. Then the agreement is not concerned with the regulation of foreign investment. Then the disciplines of the TRIMS agreement focus on investment measures that infringe GATT Article 3 and 11. In other words, it focuses on investment measures that discriminate between imported and exported products. So they are not concerned with the regulation of foreign investments. That is correct. They are only concerned with regard to how the behavior with the foreign goods and the domestic goods is being done. Therefore, first and third is correct, second is wrong. Therefore, the correct answer is option C, 1 and 3 only. Next, with reference to foreign direct investment in India, which one of the following is considered its major characteristics? So it is the investment through capital instruments, essentially in a listed company. It is a largely non-debt creating capital flow. Then it is the investment which involves debt servicing. It is the investment made by foreign institutional investors in the government securities. So the correct answer is option B. That is, it is a largely non-debt creating capital flow. So let us see this. So FDI is the investment through capital instruments by a person resident outside India in various measures like in an unlisted Indian company, or 10% or more of the post-issue paid-up capital equity on a fully diluted basis of a listed Indian company. Then FDI can be in a listed or unlisted company also. Then the capital invested in India via FDI is non-debt creating and not allowed to serve debt. Then an investment is called foreign portfolio investment if the investment is made by a person resident outside India in a capital instrument that is less than 10% or less than 10% of the paid up value of each capital. So the correct answer becomes option B, that it is a largely non-debt creating capital flow. Next, gold trench, that is the reserve trench, it refers to a loan system of the World Bank, one of the operations of the central bank, or a credit system granted by WTO to its members, or a credit system granted by IMF to its members. Let's see this. The correct answer is option D, that is a credit system granted by IMF to its members. So gold tranche or the reserve tranche is the component of a member country's quota with the International Monetary Fund, that is in the form of gold or foreign currency. For any member country, out of the total quota, 25% should be paid in the form of foreign currency or gold. So this is called a reverse tranche or a gold tranche, and out of this 25%, apart from this 25%, the remaining 75% can be in domestic currencies, and it is called the credit tranche. Therefore, the correct answer becomes option D, that is a credit system granted by IMF to its members. Next, if another global financial crisis happens in the near future, which of the following actions policies are most likely to give some immunity to India? Not depending on short-term foreign borrowings, opening up to more foreign banks, maintaining full capital account convertibility. Select the correct answer using the code given below. 1 only, 1 and 2 only, 3 only, 1, 2 and 3. The correct answer is option A, that is 1 only. So 1 is correct, 2 and 3 is wrong. Let us see this. So if we will talk about, then foreign debt is money borrowed by a government, corporation or private household from another country's government or private lenders. Total foreign debt can be a combination of short-term or long-term liability. It means if in India the money is borrowed from outside country. In comparison to long-term foreign debt, short-term foreign debts are more volatile and can cause liquidity crunch in times of global crisis. So not depending on short-term foreign borrowing. So this becomes correct. So let us see this. Capital account convertibility is the freedom of foreign investors to purchase Indian assets and that of the domestic citizens to purchase foreign financial assets. Some of the disadvantages of full capital account convertibility include higher volatility, increased burden of foreign debt, and an effect on the balance of trade and export. Thus, allowing full capital account convertibility will hurt the economy in the times of global crisis. Third is incorrect. So third becomes incorrect. Let us see this. Now foreign banks have been instrumental in introducing Indian customers to ATMs and credit cards. Besides, with Indian firms increasingly looking for investments overseas, and if the foreign bank, the money is basically with the hands of the FIIs, and FIIs when invest in our country, they can also remove the money from that country in the same respect. So that can also cause a lot of volatility and crisis. So the correct answer is not depending on short-term foreign borrowings. Opening up to more foreign banks is wrong, because that will cause volatility and crisis, and also with full capital account convertibility. Next, consider the following statements. There are two statements given. First, most of India's external debt is owned by government entities. Second, all of India's external debt is denominated in US dollars. Which of the statements given above is or are correct? 1 only, 2 only, both 1 and 2, neither 1 nor 2. So the correct answer is option D. That is neither 1 nor 2. It means both are wrong. The external debt is the portion of a country's debt that was borrowed from foreign lenders, including commercial banks, governments, or international financial institutions. And if we talk about the external commercial borrowing, then it continued to be the largest component of the external debt with a share of 38.1%. So this is not the exact terms or percentage as of now. It is of the year 2019. Then an ECB is an instrument to facilitate Indian companies to raise money outside the country in foreign currency, and the government of India permits Indian corporates to raise money via ECB for expansion of existing capacity as well as for fresh investment. Therefore, statement 1 is not correct. And as of June 2020, US dollar denominated debt is the largest component of India's external debt with a share of around 59.3%. Therefore, 2 is also not correct. All of India's external debt is denominated in US dollars. No, maximum is in US dollars, but not all. Most of India's external debt is owned by the governmental entities. No, private entities also. So the correct answer became option D. And with this, we come to the end of this episode. And at the end, Drishti IAS has come up with the IAS Prelims GS plus CSAT online course. As this would be the right opportunity to prepare for your 2025 prelims, because CSAT is one of the portions where people as of now are suffering the most, and a boost to its preparation is required. You will get 500 plus hours of classes, unlimited watch time, and 30 free test series of both GS and CSAT. So if you have any query, give us a call at 87501 and you can also download the Drishti Learning app. So this is the end of the episode 2 of economy, and before this also we have covered subjects like polity and history, and also part 1 of economy PYQ analysis. So if you haven't watched them, so go onto the playlist section of Drishti IAS English and watch all these episodes to give a boost to your preparation. And also a comment in the comment section, a question has been pinned for you, so you can go and give the answer of that question in the comment section. And also the PDF of this lecture will be provided in the Telegram channel. So the link for the Telegram channel is provided in the description box. So that's all for today. Thank you so much for watching. Till we meet next time, keep reading, keep writing, and keep subscribing to the channel. Thank you.
For more informative content, like, share and subscribe, and do not forget to press the bell icon to get the notifications.